Om Shanti. Pitashri Prajapita Brahma Baba's Life History, Part 23. Continued from Part 22. Title: The Pandavas and the Kauravas. The meditation hall of Satsang Bhavan was ruined by the fire. So, the gatherings were moved to another building named Om Nivas, where the work of the institution continued as before. Om Nivas was a very large bhavan, and for a time it housed not only the satsang but the children's school as well. Brahma Baba also lived there. The atmosphere was quiet and the vibrations peaceful. The study and the inculcation of knowledge went on at a fast pace with excellent results. At 5:30, one morning, the young girls who lived at Om Nivas went out for a bus ride with their teachers. Such field trips were a common part of the school's routine. But on this occasion, while the girls were out, the followers of the anti-party arrived and surrounded the building. A classic confrontation was about to ensue. The anti-party had been considering ever since they attempted arson what approach might have better success. The attack with torches had backfired, and people of the town had turned against them for their violence. So, they came up with a new tactic. They would initiate Mahatma Gandhi, who even at that time was becoming known for his use of non-violent picketing in order to win India's independence from Britain. To use such an approach in these circumstances against a spiritual gathering which was harming no one and was itself teaching the highest ideals of non-violence was a deep irony. But the committee felt they could gain popular support from such a ruse and force Om Mandali to give in to their demands. To gain maximum effect, they used their power to persuade the leaders of the Panchayat, the local government, to lead the picket in order to give the event an air of credibility. They also made sure the newspapers would pick up the story. So, at 7 a.m. when the sisters and brothers of the family arrived for the satsang to hear the murli, they found a large crowd of people blocking the road to the entrance. Om Nivas was surrounded on all sides by picketers. In front were the Panchayat members and the leaders of the anti-party. Many businessmen stood among them, and there were women there as well. On each side were large numbers of paid demonstrators and general mischief makers. At the main gate, 15 or 20 individuals lay down across the lower road, blocking the entrance to vehicles. The first group to have arrived at the satsang at 7 a.m. were mostly mothers and adult men. They stood peacefully in a single line opposite the demonstrators. They did not attempt to move past them or in any way provoke those people. Non-violence would be met by non-violence, just as non-violence had previously been met by non-violence. The first group was soon joined by a second. The young girls who had gone for a morning bus ride returned. When they saw the pickets, they got down from the bus and also stood in line among their brothers and sisters. They looked with love at the demonstrators, sending them vibrations of peace and harmony. They wanted only to go inside, to hear the words of God and to learn how to live the highest kind of life. The demonstrators refused to let them pass, telling them to return home. The sisters and brothers of Om Mandali were greatly outnumbered by the picketers, and so their demand for the students to end the teaching and the practice of purity must have sounded absurd even to the picketers' own ears. How could such an injustice be committed so openly? It was a scene out of the Gita. On one side was the Kaurav army, the forces of the anti-religious, the immoral and the unjust. On the other side was the Pandav Shakti army, the forces of purity and holiness. And inside, observing the two sides, lined up for battle, was Arjuna, the first among pure souls, that is Brahma Baba, and with him was God himself, Shiv Baba, who counselled this confrontation must go on. Evil must be defeated, publicly as well as privately. The battle seemed one-sided, yet help was coming from within Om Nivas. The women inside began to sing. "Oh man, what are you doing with your time? Where do you want to go? From which country have you come? Where were you before you came upon this earth? Your childhood is over, youth slips away so fast, old age brings you to the end. After that, what happens? Do you know? Do you know where you are going? Do you know from where you came? What are you thinking while you stand there? You who do not know even a little of the truth, why do you oppose God's knowledge? You're filled with the pride of wealth and power, but you do not, in fact, have either. The true path can be shown by only one. So, understand the meaning of each act that you perform. Don't waste your time. Oh man, what future are you seeking? What income are you making? Oh man, join your intellect with God. Take the endless treasure that your Father offers. Don't forfeit bliss for the false allure of Maya. The picketers heard the songs, and there was nothing they could say. The mothers sang in such a sweet range of voices that even the hardest hearts had to admit their gentle beauty. And the little girls who stood in the line outside wearing their uniforms and shining with yoga power, who could look at such souls and see an enemy? Who could look at these mothers in the eye and consider as evil their desire for purity? Who could tell these brothers that their wish to remain celibate was wrong? Both sides stood their ground. The pickets because they were under obligation or were being paid. The sisters and the brothers of Om Mandali because nothing could keep them away from being with God. Time passed. Soon the whole city became aware of this confrontation, and the crowds of curious onlookers arrived to observe. Everywhere the question was repeated, who will win this battle of wills? As the news of the picketing spread throughout the town, it reached even the ears of those girls and women who were locked in their rooms by their families, and somehow even those who were locked in with 10 locks found a way to escape. Using all of their tricks and with Shiv Baba's help, they managed to get out of their houses and run to Om Nivas. One of those who escaped her house arrest was Gopi, who was the granddaughter of a famous businessman. The story of Gopi's visions was told earlier. Now she ran to join her sisters indeed. When Gopi arrived at the scene, her grandfather was standing atop a platform, delivering a speech to the gathered crowd. He loudly praised the picketers for having the courage to keep their daughters locked away, despite the seeming harshness of such a measure, since it was for the girls' own good. With great pride he announced that he himself had locked away both his daughters and his granddaughter, imprisoning them with 13 locks inside a room of his house. He boasted that even if they made superhuman effort, they would not be able to come out. In the midst of these boasts, his granddaughter suddenly appeared before him. She smiled sweetly. The man's jaw dropped. His eyes seemed to pop out of his head. This was too much for him. He was taken completely by surprise. and before he could think of anything to say, the onlookers had recognized Gopi, and they began to laugh uproariously. The day turned out to be a hot one. As time wore on, the picketers began to tire. They drank gallons of soda water and iced tea. Some took beer. Occasionally, one of them went over to offer a drink of some sort to the schoolgirls in the opposite line. Many of these girls were very young, and it was clearly hard on their bodies to stand in the sun for hours on end. But the girls refused to accept any food or drink from an impure person. They stayed in meditation, and eventually the Kauravas' resolve began to weaken. The picketers tried to save face by telling the young girls they could go inside, but they refused to budge until the picketers had removed themselves. The picketers tried to save their face by telling the young girls they could go inside, but they refused to budge until the picketers had removed themselves. The demonstrators realized that the girls would stay all night if need be, and the crowd was now siding with those heroic little females. Slowly the number of the picketers decreased, as one by one they crept away. At last, the leaders told them all to go home. The battle had ended for the day. It was a victory for the Pandav Shakti army, but this was only one small battle in a protracted war. The next day, the picketers returned. They had decided that this time, no matter what happened, they would let no one enter Om Niwas. Out of curiosity, thousands of people turned out to watch, but the second day ended much like the first, with Brahma Baba's children holding the ground and outlasting the picketers. The Mukhi and his henchmen were desperate to defeat these unlikely warriors of purity. So, on the third day they came prepared for violence. Tension mounted as the day progressed. The picketers dressed in black. The Pandavas wore white. The picketers tried to provoke the Pandavas into doing or saying something that could be used as an excuse to start a fight. But Brahma Baba's children would not rise to the bait. On the orders from the anti-party, thugs began to infiltrate the crowd of onlookers, roughing up those who sided with the godly army. Finally, the Sindh government officer intervened, which he ought to have done 3 days earlier, and stopped the picketing from continuing. Some of the wiser leaders in the city finally started saying that the anti-Om Mandali party had gone too far, that they should not harass small children. Well-known individuals wrote articles condemning the group's tactics, denouncing especially the use of force. Under pressure, the district magistrate took court action against the troublemakers under Rules 112 and 107, but 5 individuals from Om Mandali were also cited under these rules. One of the 5 was Brahma Baba. The charge against the 5 was disturbing the peace, which was preposterous under the circumstances. A mob had laid siege unprovoked on Baba's house. They had thrown stones and attempted to set the building on fire. No member of Om Mandali had ever raised their voice in retaliation. They did no more than stand in their own doorways to protect the premises. Such is the injustice that prevails in the present iron age. Innocent victims are punished along with perpetrators of the harm. Of course, the Om Mandali case was appealed. The decision was written by a High Court judge and members of the Judicial Commission. The district magistrate's decision against Om Mandali and his flimsy arguments were stringently criticized. The opinion concluded that the law had been wrongly applied. Om Mandali had simply been working according to its religious beliefs. In a peaceful manner, the opinion started. It was the others who had broken the peace. And if the lower court's ruling was allowed to stand, the opinion noted, then social reformers everywhere would be severely threatened. In short, the government finally admitted that no crime had been committed by Om Mandali. They had been unjustly harmed and were innocent of any wrongdoing. To be continued in the next episode. Om Shanti.